you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming today to honor my grandfather. He was a wonderful man. Much of my childhood was spent on that home on Colston Creek Road. We had lots of many good memories. To this day, I can't drink apple juice because we had so many apples over the years and made apple juice every year. And one of my fondest memories about my grandfather is about garlic. My grandfather loved garlic. Every time it seems I would come over, he would say, "Kolya, ты хочешь чеснок? Чеснок полезный. Would you like some garlic?" He'd have a jar of garlic that was all ground up, and he'd be offering it to you by the spoonful. And you know, it seemed like every time you went to visit Grandpa, he had to come up to you and give you a big kiss on the cheeks, you know. God forbid you came as soon as he had his garlic. Because Grandpa wasn't a shy man, you know, he'd come right up to you and he'd give you a kiss. And I remember as a teenager, as a young man, maybe 18, 19 years old, I hadn't shaven in 2-3 days, and Grandpa came over, and so I went to give him a kiss, and I thought, well, I'm going to give it to you this time. And I just gave him a kiss and just rubbed my face. And he's like, "Nick!" He says, "Nick!" He says, "Stop, you're scratching me." He says, "From now on, unless you shave, I just want a simple kiss on the cheek." So from that day, I made sure I gave him a kiss on the lips every single time I saw him. But you know, one of the most important things to my grandfather was his reputation. One of the most important things that was important to my grandfather was his integrity. He put high value on what people thought of him. He put high value on the example that his life was. And he put minimal value on material gains. One of my earliest memories was my father and my grandfather doing a job one time and coming home and hearing a conversation where my dad said, you know, they're not going to pay us for whatever reason. And I remember my grandfather saying to my dad, "It's okay, just walk away, it's not worth it." It was more important to him what God thought about him. It was more important to him about the example that he left on this life than any monetary gain. He was a godly, spiritual man. Well, what do you mean he was godly, spiritual? Well, it was more important to him that his life be pleasing before his God and Lord. But he was spiritual also because when times came tough and he did the right thing, no matter what the circumstances were. So many times today we have people that say certain things, but when times get tough, they sort of alter their path. But it didn't matter what the occasion was. It didn't matter how hard the times were. My grandfather did what was right all the time, and therefore he was a spiritual man.
Amen.
And he left behind a legacy. So I was blessed to be in the hospital on August 22nd at 3:55 as the angels came and ushered my grandfather into the presence of Almighty God, where he is today. And today I want to, just as the choir was singing, I wanted to thank you as a choir. Because my grandfather loved the choir. A few weeks ago he was at my house, and of course I gave him a kiss, and he says, "Grandpa, you didn't shave." I said, "What's going on?" He says, "Kolya," he says, "I only shave for choir and for church. Twice a week, that's it." He loved the choir. It was his act of service to his God, and he took it very seriously. And as you sang, I started crying, because it's as if the heavens went on pause for a moment, and my grandfather looked down, and he said, "Yes, go for it, sing." Because before my grandmother passed away, She said to my grandfather, Dmitry, never stop singing to your God. And I'm going to say to you as a choir from my grandfather, never stop singing to your God. Continue right to the end. Just like my grandfather continued to the end. And as I was asked to speak on behalf of the family, the story came into my mind.